Hello, and welcome to episode 150 of the Fully In It podcast. I'm Kate. I'm here with you today. I am so pumped to be sharing this episode with you because this is a topic that we mamas need to talk about. Because I'm wondering, do you struggle to let go and trust that everything is working out? Do you worry that if you don't control every detail of your life and your business, that something is going to go wrong? In this episode, we're going to look at what it really means to be in control and how you can shift into a space of trust, certainty, and rest. So let's go ahead and dig right in. Welcome to Fully In It, a show for moms who are called to grow themselves while growing their families. Join me, Kate Saffel, a life and a business coach for moms, a homeschooling mama of 3, and a woman on a quest to show that our lives become even more meaningful when we remember why we are here and what truly matters most. This show is about going fully in it for you and the people you love by showing up powerfully in motherhood, entrepreneurship, in your home life, and for your family vision. Join me for weekly episodes that will inspire you to live intentionally and by your values, to slow down and truly be present to your family life, to make decisions that grow a profitable business without sacrificing anything in the process, and to become the kind of mom and woman you know you're meant to be in this lifetime. Okay, so when I was thinking about what episode I wanted to do for 150, and I was thinking, wow, like 150 is such a nice number. I should do like a reflection on the podcast or share some kind of wisdom gained over all the years of this podcast, right? Like something comprehensive that would feel really good. And then it just kind of hit me, and the idea to do an episode over control. And I thought, I don't know about this. Like, who wants to hear about their control issues? Because, if you're anything like me, control is the coping mechanism by which we help ourselves to feel better about our lives and specifically about a future that is unknown. And I thought, who's going to want to hear an episode about that? But my hope is that what I'm going to share with you today is actually a balm for your soul. It reminds you that you are okay, that your life is going exactly how it needs to, and that you can lessen the death grip on your life, your kids, your home, and your business, and trust everything is working out in your favor. So I had to look up what is a control freak, because I've heard that phrase. I think some people have called me control freak and not the nicest way before. And Google defines it as a person who feels an obsessive need to exercise control over themselves and others and to take command of any situation. Now, what this definition doesn't offer is why. Why do we feel this need to exercise control over every inch of our lives? Where does that even stem from? Now, I'm not a psychologist, you know this, right? I have been a coach for moms for nearly 6 years, and I've had the privilege of hearing the intimate thoughts of hundreds of moms. And I'm also a mom myself, and so I know the landscape of my own brain and what prompts me to want to take control of situations. And what I have learned from witnessing all of this over the years is that our desire from control comes from a space of feeling like everything is about to go out of hand, feeling like I don't know what the future holds and I'm scared. And I need to have something I can hold on to so that I feel safe. So what I really feel is the truest problem here is an epidemic of a lack of safety. And we could stem into what has happened generationally, traumas you've experienced as a child, the landscape of the world right now and how it has been for the last 4 years, it is no surprise that as mamas, we are especially feeling a lack of safety. And additionally, we've been conditioned all throughout our school years, if you went to traditional schooling like I did, that if you do the right thing, if you just follow the rules, then everything's going to work out for you. Everything's going to be okay. And so it's this like underlying belief that if I just figure it out, if I can just know, if I can just do it right, then I'm going to be okay. My kids are going to be okay. My future is going to be okay. And I really believe we have to let go of this. We have to do the work to release this idea that we can control everything and that somehow that is going to keep you safe. And we have to redefine also, where does safety even come from? What creates our internal safety? So here's why this matters. This matters because my guess is that you are losing sleep and energy and mental capacity, worrying, stressing, in anxiety, and trying to control every detail. It is robbing you of peace of mind. It's robbing you of a sense of comfort that could be available to you in this very moment, even if your circumstances don't change. You can access that right now. It's impacting our relationships because our kids can feel our anxiety. They can feel that underlying worry that things are not going to be okay. And they see it manifested in our actions when we're overdoing, we're overcompensating, and we're constantly trying to rearrange all the pieces of our life to create something that maybe isn't even in our control to create. When we do this, ultimately what is happening is you are giving your power away to your fear. You are letting this need for control take away your happiness and your joy in the moment that's available to you right now. I want you to think about humans throughout all of history. They did not have access to technology. What a blessing, right? They didn't have access to the news cycle. They didn't have access to even a grasp of the way things play out as we do now. They didn't have calendars. They didn't have meal planning. Maybe they did. I don't know. They had their own versions of calendars and meal planning, but certainly they weren't as obsessive about getting it right as we are today. And consequently, what is happening is that it's distancing us from what truly matters most, which is our connection to our families, ourselves, our faith, and our future that we are creating. So I want to encourage you as you listen to this episode to come to it with an open mind. Remember that uncertainty used to be a way of life for people in the past. They dealt with a lot more tragedy and heartache than I would say we do today. Death was always right around the corner. Now we get to worry about whether or not our child is going to make the sports team from the comfort of our air-conditioned living rooms, right? We've got DoorDash. You can get food on demand, your groceries dropped off at your door. Why are we not more peaceful when we have all of these needs that are met? If we can look at the logic of this and recognize that having more comfort isn't actually increasing our sense of peace, then maybe that tells us our peace doesn't come from controlling things and having comfort met. Interesting, right? And so if that is the case, then where does our peace come from? What do we actually have control over? Now, this is something I've been thinking about a lot really for the last couple of years, especially over the last 6 months, as my own faith journey has deepened and I've really come back to my faith. And I've mentioned this in a few episodes, and this may not resonate with you, and that's totally fine. It has been such a comfort for me to trust that God is the one who has the say in all of this. And it's not up to me, because I spent a lot of years, and this really showed up in my business, where I had to control every single detail. And it meant I was over-actioning and hustling and exhausting myself because I felt alone. I thought, it's just me. I have to make this happen. I am what's standing between my family and a horrible future, or a miserable one, or just a future where we don't have all the comforts that we want. How much pressure. And so I was talking to a client about this past week, about how, when we make our business, and this is just an example, but you may have your own example of this. It could be your kids, right? It could be your home. It could be your work. But when we make our business the source of our happiness and our sense of like everything is right in the world, and we were talking specifically in the context of dopamine hits. Well, when business is going well, you're getting those dopamine hits and you're like, yes, I am the one who's doing all of this. I'm amazing. I'm making it happen. Like, look at me. I'm awesome. And it feels really good because you're getting that reinforcement from people buying and paying and signing up for your things and saying yes and telling you that your work matters. But what happens when they're not? What happens when you're not getting the sales and you go through a drought where you wonder, why is this happening to me? Most likely you'll do what I've done to myself in the past, which is you turn on yourself. You blame yourself and you say, I should have done better. I should have been different. I should have been more than I was. And it's my fault. Because again, if it's only you who's in control all the time, then you become the only person to blame, right? And that's so much pressure for any one person to handle. So regardless of your belief system, I want to encourage you to reflect on the possibility that maybe you don't have to control everything, and it's actually not all up to you. And to be honest with you, this is why I had to break up with the whole manifesting thing. So that really came into my life how many years ago? 3-4 years ago. I really bought into the manifestation thing. I was like, yes. Okay, so if I just believe really hard that my life is what I want it to be and I'm already there, and I just trust in this thing, all of my dreams are going to come true. And sometimes it felt like it was working and I would have these insane results. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yay, manifestation works. But then when it wasn't working and I was doing all of the things that they say you're supposed to do to manifest the life that you want, then I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing it well enough, right? So it would feed that narrative about not enoughness. And then I would think, okay, I just got to figure out how to manifest better. And so it wasn't just like, I'm going to control my business, I'm going to control my home, I'm going to control my kids. Now I've got to control the universe. It was this really weird thing. And I finally woke up from it and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm trying to play God here, and that's not my job to do. And again, I'm sure at some point I'll do an episode on just everything that unfolded when I really came back to God and how everything changed for me. And it is the most insane story. I'm just still I'm not quite ready to share it yet, but wherever you are right now with all of this, I just want to encourage you that you don't have to hold up the world. You don't. And it's not your responsibility to. And can we just breathe a sigh of relief that you don't have to? It's not your job. Now, there are some things you do have control over, and we're going to talk a little bit about those. And hopefully that helps you to stay in your lane and know, okay, this is mine, and then the rest of it isn't. So what you have control over most of the time is how you think about your situation. So we have a lot of say over what's happening inside of our brains and what version of our story we're going to tell ourselves. And so you can notice and pay attention to when that narrative is getting out of control, and you can see yourself obsessing and like, I have to fix things. And you can shift it. And you can ask yourself, what do I actually want to believe about this situation? What do I want to believe about my child getting on that sports team or not? What do I want to believe about us getting the home that we want or not? What do I want to believe about my business or not? What do I want to believe about myself or not? Getting intentional about that is going to be a balm to your soul, but pay attention to when your thoughts become controlling in nature. You will feel it in your body because you will feel that anxiety, that pit in your stomach. You'll feel the tightness across your chest. And I want you to just like make a mental note here that that is when your need for control has crossed the line. And it becomes your invitation in that moment to do some deep breathing, right? Do some nervous system support techniques to see if you can relax yourself. And then ask yourself, okay, what am I actually in control of here? What can I do? Because that's the second thing is, what can you do? You can do what you're able to do that's reasonable for that time and that context. You can't play God. So you say, okay, what am I capable of doing in this moment? Let's look in the context of growing a business. So let's say you're in the earlier stages of your business and maybe it does feel a little bit out of control. You don't know what you're doing. What I want you to ask yourself is like, okay, what are the pieces I actually have control over? Well, I have control over showing up every day or showing up in a consistent manner that feels good for me. I have control over how I show up on social media, what I say, my messaging. I have control over how I think about my business and the role it plays in my life overall. And I have control over the way I interact with my people, my customers, my clients, and that exchange that I have with them. But when it gets out of hand is when we blame ourselves for not signing enough clients. We blame ourselves when we get bad feedback on something. We can take the information that we receive, think about how we want to view it, and then come up with an intentional action plan to move forward. But again, at the end of the day, sometimes you have to just release the control and surrender and say, you know what? I'm actually not in control of all of these things. I'm not, right? God, higher power, whatever it is you believe, right? I believe God is in control. And holding that creates the true rest, the true certainty. It lets me step back from trying to be the creator of everything and trust that there is a creator that is in charge. I don't have to be that. And that's a huge weight off of my shoulders. And I hope it is for you too. Because if you look at how everything has been going so far for you, do you want to have to keep holding everything up? Or wouldn't it feel nice to just surrender even a little bit? To just recognize that life is always going to have its ups and downs. There is no perfection that any of us are ever going to reach. And even if you do receive all the things that your heart desires, who are you going to be when you get there? Will you be happy and joyful? Will you wait until you have what you want to allow yourself to feel peace? Or could you start feeling it today? Could this become a conscious effort? Maybe effort's not the right word there. A conscious recognition that peace is available to you, whether your life looks picture perfect on paper or your life is a hot mess, whether your business is making $500,000 a year or nothing at all, whether your relationship with your kids feels so good and you feel so connected, or you feel bad because you haven't been present in the way you want to be and you feel disconnected from your kids. In any of these circumstances, what you have control over is how you're going to think about it, how you choose to feel, and then the actions you take from it. Okay? So I hope that this episode met you where you are right now. I would love to hear from you. What are your takeaways from this episode? You can message me on Instagram at happierin motherhood. You can send me an email, hello@happierin motherhood.com. And most of all, what I really appreciate is when you leave a review for this podcast and let me know, is it helping you? Is it benefiting you? If you've gotten any kind of benefit from listening to my podcast, whether that's just in the last few weeks or over the last several years, when you leave a review, it lets other people know that this podcast is worth listening to, and it helps me get in the ears of more people and expand my impact so that I can help more mamas. So would you be part of that mission with me? Okay, my love, I hope that you have an incredible next week, and I am always cheering you on, and I will see you so very soon.